The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show, The Right Side. Doug Billings here with you. Thank you for joining me from all around the planet, wherever you may be. I appreciate it. Hey, listen, YouTube, real quickly. I was canceled 4 years ago off of YouTube because they thought I was too conservative and I was telling too many inconvenient truths. Head over to YouTube and do a search at The Right Side, Doug Billings. At The Right Side, Doug Billings. That's how you'll find me. Subscribe. It's free. Click the red bell so you get notified whenever I drop new content over there. It happens almost every day. All right. Now, the task at hand, the topic at hand. I want to speak to you today, not like a radical liberal does, right? The radical liberals, always emotional, always overreacting, heads exploding. I want to talk to you calmly and plainly about how the radical left, the globalist partners they have around the country, the media, and politicians, people in the elected class in this country, especially rhinos. And we have a huge rhino problem, as you know. This is not done by accident. It's not because it's complicated, but because consent, when you're a globalist, when you're a radical liberal, when you're a rhino, consent is inconvenient. We don't need to get the people's voice. We don't need to get their opinion. So all of this becomes inconvenient when you want to be in control, which is what globalists, liberals, and rhinos want. The swamp, the establishment. So I'm going to show you and talk to you exactly how this works. I'm going to give you examples in real time and in real life about what's going on in the world. I want to bring it all back home at the end of the show, this very short 10 minutes that we have together, and talk about Kansas City, because what just happened in Kansas City should outrage everyone. It has really nothing to do with sports, nothing to do with the state of play in America. It has everything to do with giving you an example about how the elected class in the swamp establishment want to exercise control over us by taking away our voice. So first of all, in order to do this, I've got to identify the pattern. The pattern here is power without permission. And it happens over and over again, this pattern. I can tell you about stories, and we can watch together in the news, where the same governing philosophy that's at work here is decisions being made behind closed doors. Money, public money, committed to projects without voter approval. Rules changed without public input. Questions met with ridicule and silence, or cancellation if we dare to question it. We may be canceled, like I was off of YouTube those 4 years ago. This is what I call elite management. And once you recognize the pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. Minnesota, the big story up there, fraud only matters when citizen journalists force the issue. Massive daycare fraud up there. Tim Walz is in a lot of trouble. Skippy, you know Tim Walz, the poster child for the wussification of the American male. Daycare fraud, taxpayer money, exposed not by the legacy media, but by Nick Shirley. Thank you, Nick. And what happened before all of this went viral? Shh, silence. We're not going to talk about it. And if it was brought up, it was deflection, right? Gaslighting or projection against us, or downplaying the whole situation. Doug, you're overreacting. It's just business as usual. We're helping to feed hungry kids in Minnesota. Because when the fraud happens inside of a system that is controlled by one political class, and the media protects it, the people are the last ones who are allowed to know about it. So what's going up in Minnesota is not about race. It's not about Somalia. It's about and it's not about the Somalian people. It's not about their ideologies. This is about money and power flowing around Minnesota and out of Minnesota without any oversight. And the only reason it stopped being ignored is because a citizen forced all of it into the open. I think that's evidence of the obvious. I think we all know that. We all see it. So that's the first lesson. The system that we have and that we notice does not self-correct. Instead, it resists any kind of correction that we may offer it. Elections, also in the news. Trust us. Trust us, they say. Well, trust us, ladies and gentlemen, is not an answer. Georgia's in the news again. You can look at the whole thing, the whole election problem. Anytime citizens ask for transparency or audits, verification, they're told, get out of the room, don't ask any questions, trust the system. You're undermining our democracy, Doug. What? Well, first of all, we don't have a democracy, and we don't have a democracy on purpose. That's how the founders intended it to be. But only those in power get to ask the questions and give answers. If a system is legitimate, ladies and gentlemen, it welcomes the sunlight. That's my opinion. If it resists scrutiny, it's obviously protecting something. And this is why I've told you from time to time, one of the litmus tests of how do you know who a rhino is? Because people ask me all the time, how do you tell? Doug, you spend a lot of time talking about rhinos. How do you tell if somebody's a rhino? If somebody's running for office or in office, ask them the question. Do you think, Mr. or Mrs. Candidate, that we have election integrity issues in this country? Do you think that we should audit every election, no matter who wins? Well, if that person, that candidate, hems or they haw or they just flat out say no, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, that is a rhino. A member of the deep state. They're obviously automatically part of the liberal establishment. But there's also the rhino element, people who claim to be one of us. Because the people are told to stand down while decisions are being made about them and without them. Global institutions, same kind of thing. Governance without consent. It happens on a global scale as well. We can zoom out. Global institutions filled with bureaucracy, with unelected bureaucrats who are unaccountable to any kind of scrutiny, insulated from voters, and they can declare issues, they can resolve problems, they can shape policy, they can influence how we spend money while pretending that they're somehow morally superior to nation states. And in that system, again, no votes, no consent, no accountability, just experts telling you what's best for you. And that's not anything close to cooperation. That's governance without permission, plain and simple. And Americans have a right to begin to reject this. So let's bring it home. Kansas City, my hometown. This is where the abstraction of all of this becomes real. What just happened in Kansas should set off alarm bells for everyone, no matter where you live. A massive deal involving billions of dollars of public money, public risk, tax exposure, and long-term obligations are tied now to the relocation of the Kansas City Chiefs from the Missouri side of the state line to Kansas, without a vote from the people in the state of Kansas. No statewide referendum, no direct approval, no consent. Outrageous, and just a small group of political insiders decided on this for everyone else in the state. And I'm going to name names because accountability requires it. The Legislative Coordinating Council. Are you kidding me? The LCC. Might as well call it looting citizens' cash. The council included, among others, Ty Masterson, who was president and a so-called Republican. He's the president of the Senate. He's running for governor, for God's sakes. And he did this to us. Dan Hawkins, Republican Speaker of the Kansas House. Really? Dan Hawkins, who couldn't get his House to vote for redistricting, even though they've got a majority. Very interesting. And other top elected officials representing about 6 to 7 people. The governor, of course, was included. Laura Kelly, she's a commie socialist, formerly known as Democrat. It wasn't debated publicly. It wasn't put before the voters. It wasn't slowed down for transparency. It was done in secret and then presented as a fiat accomplishment. And the message to Kansas and Kansans was clear. What Ty Masterson, Dan Hawkins, our governor, Laura Kelly, and the LCC told Kansans, this is happening whether you like it or not. So that is audacity. That is arrogance. And that is, quite frankly, swamp mentality. And why this is not at all about the sport of football. Let me be clear about that. This is not about football. It's not about the Chiefs. This is about process. If elected officials can commit the public to massive financial exposure without voter consent on the issue, they can do it on taxes. They can do it on development deals. They can do it on public-private partnerships. They can do it on infrastructure, debt, future obligations, on and on and on. And it's this kind of governing philosophy that says to us, we were elected once. We were elected for this. Now sit down and zip it. Feels like we're being treated like children. Missouri voters got a chance. They said no to the deal. Not the same deal, a different deal, their own deal. They got a vote, and they said no. Kansas elites, Kansas elected officials responded by saying yes anyway, and we didn't even get a say in the matter. Now, there are some people out there that will say, well, we don't get a say on when our roads are developed or what, how many street lights there are. I mean, the intellectual immaturity of that argument, give me a break. But think about what this means. One group of citizens voted, a small group. Another group of citizens wasn't even given the option. This is not representation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we have a revolution about action without representation? What we've got is rule in Kansas by the Insiders Club. Exclusion. That's their strategy. Now we connect the dots. Minnesota, elections, global institutions, Kansas. Different issues, absolutely, but the same disease. People are treated like obstacles, and I'm sick of it. The people are the authority here. We are in charge of this government. And there's this uncomfortable truth. The establishment doesn't cut you out because it hates you. It cuts you out because it works. Consent slows things down. We can't take the time to get your opinion. When we want your opinion, we'll give it to you. Debate. You want to debate the issue? No, not for these guys, because that introduces risk. Votes creates accountability. So they bypass all of it. Ty Masterson is running for governor of Kansas. This matters. And one more thing, Kansas. Ty Masterson wants to be governor. So ask yourself this. If this is how decisions are made now, what happens when even more power is consolidated? This is not partisan. This is philosophical. Do we believe really that government exists to serve the people? Or do we believe that it's there, or do we allow it to manage us? Because the behavior that we reward is behavior that we will get more of. And let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. A republic does not die overnight. It erodes quietly, deal by deal, exception by exception, vote by vote. That never happens. When the people are excluded long enough, citizenship becomes symbolic instead of real. And that is exactly what the establishment swamp depends on. Now, here's the good news. This only works if we, the people, accept it. And Americans and Kansans are done accepting it. I think your answer for your upcoming midterm elections is clear, and your primary elections in Kansas is clear. Vote the swamp establishment out. Find a populist grassroots candidate who speaks the truth, who's unapologetic in the approach that he takes to patriotism, who can win the room by giving a speech that he doesn't have to read. We're in this together, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it. For the Republic, for Kansas. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.